How are you going to be quiet while I do this? Good enough. Hey, this is Noah. You can thank this particular individual for me making this video, because otherwise I probably would have just let it slide and move on. Please understand that I have other things that I do. So sometimes my priority is not to cover every single thing that comes out about a game or something Sega related. You know. But this is reasonably substantial, and since one brave soul has decided to ask for it, I will give the person, what they want. So, some news came out about the Jet Set Radio game that was shown off at the Game Awards, as well as Crazy Taxi. A leaker on Twitter called Midori. They are known for leaking Atlas and Sega related stuff, and they are very often correct. They leaked about some interesting details about what exactly we saw at the Game Awards, because though it is not very clear, because with what we saw, they were not very explicit as to the nature of those things. Generally, one would assume that all of it is, of course, new games, but like what kind of new games, you know what I mean? Apparently, according to Midori, both Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi are to be getting rebooted games and remakes, if that makes sense. Son, I need you to relax. With those things in mind, Son, I'm trying to record. With that information in place, apparently what we actually saw at the Game Awards will shock and confuse you. The Crazy Taxi game was in fact actually a remake, not just a complete rebooted game. And additionally, the Jet Set Radio one was the rebooted game. So to be clear, both of these series are to be getting both one game that is a reboot, like a truly new game, and one game that is supposed to be a remake of older games. Now, if this is the case, in the case of Jet Set Radio, this does not change much for me. I assumed this was a new game. I would never have assumed that what we saw was a, remake or a remaster of any kind. But in the case of Crazy Taxi, this bodes an interesting detail. Plus, an additional piece of news that I heard, I think, today, as of the recording of this. Supposedly, Crazy Taxi, the one that was shown in the Game Awards, or the complete reboot thing, will actually have a 100-man sort of Fortnite-inspired Battle Royale mode. Now, I want to make very clear, at this point, with the videos that I make too many of them and put so little, definitive thought into how I want to phrase certain things and the content in which I want to, speak on, that I don't know if I have even made mention of this detail. I hope that I did, so that there is some evidence to this. But I may or may not have actually called this in advance. I suppose I could actually call forth witnesses to this, because I know I've said this to individuals in person. But when the idea of Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio being brought up, years ago as Sega's, super games, and the whole point of the super game, as people speculated, was so that Sega would have, live service titles that would keep money flowing in consistently over time. I initially was speaking on Crazy Taxi as saying, I was basically making fun of the idea that Crazy Taxi wouldn't make a whole lot of sense as a live service game. You know, it's an arcade game. How would that work? And I was talking to a coworker at the time, and I was trying to make fun of it by saying, oh, what, is it going to be a Battle Royale thing where you have 50 different cars and they're all trying to race against each other? But as I was saying it, trying to mock the idea, it started to sink in that actually that's kind of cool. Because I was thinking about it that, the normal gameplay loop of Crazy Taxi would actually lend itself well to doing this, because all you would have to do is have everyone playing by the same rules as normal. Because in Crazy Taxi, you lose when the timer runs out. You gain more time by actually picking people up and performing well during the, getting them to their location. So the more effective players are going to be able to last longer, while the other ones are going to get dropped. So the more that I thought that, the more I was like, you know what? It would be funny. However, I think it might be a little too chaotic. I think there would be a little bit too much chaos. And I certainly would not have suggested actually having 100 cars on the maps that we expect from Crazy Taxi, at least at the size of the maps that we have come to know. So they're actually doing that. And I enjoyed seeing the response to it on Twitter, because it seemed, at least from the initial response to the article that got published, was that actually kind of funny, just imagining the absolute chaos of that. And I'm glad to hear that. Because in an age where, people are starting to realize that live service games suck, unless if the game itself is good, with games like Helldivers 2 being okay, and Power World doing okay, and what have you. You make a Crazy Taxi game that's a battle royale as opposed to, any other just first-person shooter thing. People are going to play that because it's funny. People play the Yakuza games for any number of reasons. But more often than not, one of the funniest things I see on Twitter is people reacting to content that's in the Yakuza games, specifically sub-stories, and being like, what is Yakuza even about? Because it's the most random garbage and stupid stuff. Going to play Crazy Taxi for the sole reason of the absolute madness that is going to be 100 taxis desperately trying to survive in the city, in this cutthroat industry of actually being able to pick up people and take them to their destination, having to weave through traffic at speeds unimaginable to the average sedan owner, is something that I think a lot of people could get behind, because it's funny. What? In hindsight, now that I'm doing this, I'm realizing that, the comment said, that there was some Jet Set Radio news, a week ago. But in hindsight, I just made an assumption as to what they were referring to. There's a real possibility that, not only did I miss the mark about, what the leak was saying, but that I'm not even talking about the right news. Anyway, what do you guys think of this information? I am, of course, still looking forward to Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi. I actually just ordered from insert coin clothing, not sponsored, but I wouldn't mind being. They're officially licensed Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio shirts. Obviously, if I had them, I would have been wearing them, but instead I'm wearing MCU Incognito. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this. This is Noah. Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi. See ya.